Dr. Blaine, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's terrific to see you, but I've got to say, it was terrific throughout this conference to see these spectacular youth representatives for the YEF, the Institute for Youth Education and Families. How do you get such terrific young people?
Well, we have youth councils around the country, and so many of the cities have actually brought in youth as a part of their governance process. And so these youth the youth councils from individual cities come together here at our national conferences. And one of the things that's really exciting to me is that we then have a set of those youth who actually have seats on our YEF council. So we have 4 incredible young people. They're from all over the country. They are incredibly bright and articulate,
yes.
And what we're so excited about is having the authentic voice of youth at the table. And we're actually building in a new process that will actually staff the youth that are sitting on the YEF Council, so they will have all the same resources that, for example, a mayor sitting on the council would have. So
wow.
Really excited about the authentic engagement of youth and making sure that youth voices are built into all the processes that the Institute runs.
And do they leave you feeling cooler or a greater realization of just how out of it you are?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Much of my career was in the academic field. So before coming to the Institute for Youth Education and Families, I was a provost at a small college, and then I was a dean at a university. And so I used to say that young people keep me young, which is a wonderful thing. And
it seems to be working. You look
well,
terrific.
You know, we try. But what's really exciting about it is that they have new ideas and new ways of thinking. And one of the things that I used to say is that this generation of students has access to resources and information that no other generation ever has. And so their brains have literally developed differently than any other generation. And I think it's just a marvel to see. I'm intrigued by them all the time, and I think our future will be well served with them.
I think so too. They've been outstanding. I can only assume that you will be just as good as they are in the conversation, but I've got to tell you, there's a high bar.
I'll work hard.
What have the last 2 years been like for early childhood learning?
Yeah, it's been difficult. It's been difficult for families. And it's been difficult for the children themselves. One of the challenges that we see, especially in vulnerable communities, is that access to high quality childcare is really fundamental. And we understand the importance of these early years in a child's life and what it means in order to be able to have the right support that you need for the development that you need. And so for many children, especially vulnerable children, that simply hasn't been there. And so we know that we're going to have to do a lot of work to catch up. We know that one of the things that's exciting is that we know that the brain is plastic. We know that we can catch up, but we have to be very intentional in that work. And so I'm excited about how we're going to build that intentionality and make sure that we're serving those children and those families the best.
So tell me about that intentionality and the building and your plan and your vision. What is your vision in the role that you have?
When we look at the Institute writ large, we've been talking a lot about essentially 3 different levels that the Institute works on, right? So we have the programmatic level, where we're thinking about individual programs that are actually focused on outcomes in communities. But deeper than that, we look at the systemic level. When we're working with the city, how are we actually changing the system and thinking about what the impacts of these systemic level changes are. But we're trying to dig even deeper now to look at how do we measure the population level impacts? And this is what we were talking about earlier. What it means to work with these children directly and how we're increasing outcomes and building more opportunity for more children and families across the country. So I'm incredibly excited about where we are, how we're positioned right now as an institute. It's a tragedy that a worldwide pandemic had to push us to that point, but I think that we're in the right space at the right time, and hopefully we can do the right things.
Literally, how do you work with cities or municipalities?
Great question.
Do you, at the program level, do you help them at the deepest level with actual measurements? How do you work with them?
All three. So generally the way that we work, at the programmatic level, we're actually designing the program with the cities. So we're thinking about
Expertise.
Exactly. We're sitting down with them. It's really our technical assistants, and it's a design process of really thinking about what are the outcomes that we're trying to produce with this partner, but then how are we actually giving them the support that they need in order to be able to institute the kinds of changes that they want. At the systems level, it's really we hand it over to the city. They have the plan now, right? And so now it's about us supporting their execution, right? What do we need in order to be able to change the strategy, to be able to change the teams, to be able to organize ourselves? What does that look like? And then at the population level, one of the things that we're doing is a lot of data organizing, so that we really want to understand what's our current state, how are we measuring what change looks like, how are we measuring that over time, and how are we building our programs so that we can follow the long tail of the data, right? So often you're funded for a certain period,
yes,
but we want to be able to measure the data much longer than that because we want to see what the long-term effects.
You want the impact all the way down the long tail.
Exactly. We're really at all three phases, and what I'm excited about now is that we've actually built that into our structure, and I think that we're going to really see the impact of that work in communities across the country.
So you've got this incredible vantage point. You get to, and you're both vertically,
yep,
from top to bottom, but also horizontally, coast to coast.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see out there?
What I see is a lot of inequity, right? I see some communities that are really thriving, and I see some communities that are really struggling. And one of the things that we see a lot is that inside of a community itself, you can disaggregate data census tract by census tract,
yeah,
and you can see those that are thriving and that those that are struggling in the same community.
It just shows up there.
Absolutely.
The numbers don't lie.
They don't lie. They don't lie. And so, for us, it's a matter on focusing in on those inequities, using the data to drive us towards how we're going to invest in communities that need it the most.
So I don't mean this to be a trick question, and I know you love all of your children equally. Are there any programs that you see that are working that if you could, you would lift them out of place A and put them into B, C, and D?
I think that when we start to talk about early learning specifically, one of the things that really excites me is this cohort model where we're bringing together cities around a specific intervention. And it doesn't matter what the intervention is, right? But the ability of cities to listen and learn from each other, to be able to bounce ideas off of each other, and to really think about, I have this problem here in my community, but communities A, B, and C all have the same issues. What do we have in common? What can we learn from them? How can we partner with them? And it's almost like an ecosystem of partners, right? And so bringing together the right partners at the right times in order to be able to serve communities, to be able to listen and learn from each other, and then to be able to have that technical expertise to say, okay, this is what execution looks like. It's incredibly exciting.
It sounds like it would be. It also sounds like to be able to do that, to bring together different locations and ideas and almost have them harmonize in such a way, it would seem that one would want the skills of a conductor. You don't happen to know anyone who has that skill set?
I might know a little bit about that, yeah.
How does that play into how you look at what you do?
So it's interesting. So for the first part of my career, I was a professional musician, and I actually conducted orchestras in different parts of the world. And one thing about being a conductor is that you have a picture of a sonic picture of what you're trying to portray to an audience in your head, and your job is to be able to make space for the artists to be able to achieve that sonic picture. And so it's really about how do you both translate that picture that you have in your head, but support the musicians so that they have the space in order to be able to achieve it, and then if something's not exactly right, to be able to organize, meld, blend in a way that achieves the outcome. So it's very similar to running an organization. I think it's maybe a slightly unusual training, but it serves me well, so I enjoy it.
Well, these are slightly unusual times, so it's good to have a conductor, provost, dean, and leader of cities and organizations. Dr. Blaine, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.